Jamie, welcome to the show.
Thank you, mate.
Yeah, glad to make time together here in beautiful Wellington or close to Wellington, New Zealand. Quick intro, Jamie Tout is the director and I think also one of the founding partners of the NZCIS. I'll let you explain that in a second. But yeah, let's dive right in. Who are you? Why are we here? I obviously know why we're here, but yeah, love to hear from you about the NZCIS, the vision, everything that's happened over the last 6 years.
Awesome. No, well, who am I? That's a deep question, but
We got time, so yeah.
No, look, mate, thanks for having us in. It's been awesome, and it's great to have you guys down. We're getting an awesome amount of benefit from what you guys do with Clearlight. So yeah, thanks for coming down. But yeah, look, my background is 20 odd years in sport. Spent a lot of time working from grassroots up to professional athletes. Worked across several national programs, spent a lot of time in New Zealand rugby, particularly with the Black Ferns, a team very close to my heart. Worked mainly in strength and conditioning and data science.
Beautiful.
And to be honest, this is my first radio in terms of helping a facility design.
Yeah.
But I'm very fortunate to have guys like Malcolm Gillies and Kevin Melville, who are the two founding fathers, if you like, of NZCIS, who brought me along in 2016 to jump on the waka.
Yeah, right.
And keep paddling this thing to make it go bigger, faster, stronger.
Cool. Thanks for sharing. So what is the NZCIS? I mean, what does it stand for? What's the vision?
Yeah, the vision back in 2016, Malcolm Gillies wanted to look at a shared resource model that would accommodate the various professional sports teams here in Wellington, as well as attracting overseas teams to come down here for pre-season trainings, but also mitigating some risk and also developing a real campus feel again by having commercial enterprise here and government tenancies.
Beautiful.
So it's everything from over 15 floors of commercial real estate, a lot of government tenants in those. There's a food and beverage precinct. We are officially the biggest hotel in Wellington.
Yeah, right.
450 odd beds from boarding house style accommodation all the way up to some beautiful new apartments. It was sort of, I guess, my role in that sort of puzzle, if you like, to come on board and look at how the campus could evolve between Mal and Kev's vision to the sports teams. And I was that sort of conduit initially.
Yeah.
The campus itself, if anyone visits, they'll see straight away the brutalist architecture from the 70s.
Yeah.
That is because this was an old academic campus and it thrived from the 1970s through to 2000. There was thousands of people coming in and out of the campus every week. And they were the home of podiatry courses and other sciences. It was a tertiary institution of which there were three similar ones or two other similar ones in Wellington. And near overnight, back in 2000, the campus got shut down where the three polytechs got merged into one. And so this place lay dormant for 15 years.
Yeah, wow.
And nothing was done. And it was through, definitely through Mal's blue sky thinking and vision to reinvent the campus and repurpose it. And it's probably been one of, if not the biggest refurbishment programs in New Zealand.
Right.
It's gone through and the whole 18 hectares has gone under a massive renovation where only two buildings effectively have come down to now build a new sports institute here, new change rooms, new accommodations. And it really now, you could arguably, we're running out of space. But wow. Yeah, it's a massive undertaking that they've taken on. And yeah, thankfully they brought me on the waka to join them.
Yeah, great. And I think you guys have done an amazing job. I mean, we're literally in Jamie's head office at the moment. And I got a beautiful turf field over there. We got a massive gym over there. I think the recovery booth are just literally probably 100 meters or something away from us. And for a visitor, I think it's pretty impressive, right? Because I'm staying on site and I kind of walk here 3 minutes and everything's just really neat and spectacular. So love the vision on a macro perspective to just bring in different aspects. And what I love about you guys is you combine community, professionalism, sports, and probably also some governmental bodies, which are kind of really situated around here and kind of make it an all-encompassing campus, so to speak. On a more micro level, I mean, it's literally like, I think for someone who is into health, wellness, exercise, sports, I feel like this is a huge playground with literally state-of-the-art equipment. I was fortunate to train in the gym yesterday, had it all to myself, and it was literally like, wow, this is all here, what's happening? But, how did you guys get started? Because obviously, like from a vision to where you guys are now, that's a massive achievement. And there's a good reason why it's probably taken only 6 years. But like, how did you select the different, I think, tools, but also areas of this campus. Because to me, from an outsider, it's probably the most unique facility in the world when it comes to health and wellness.
It is unique. It's a really insightful question, mate, because it is a huge animal to try and coordinate. When you start talking about shared resources, your mind straight away has to be thinking about football and rugby and other sports, and it's male and female, and it's different age groups. So we can't be everything to everyone, but we've done our best to try and make sure it's a really high performance environment. So one of the first tasks undertaken in 2017 was we had our foundation membership group. So it was the Hurricanes professional rugby team, the Pulse were involved, the men's and women's Phoenix, or men's Phoenix back then. Women didn't exist in the football space at that time, so that's been an exciting development.
Yeah.
High Performance Sport New Zealand were in the room. New Zealand Defence Forces were in the room.
Wow.
So there was 9 individuals, and the question was, well, what do we need to make this place great? And 48 ideas were generated in that first meeting in a very rapid fire.
Like what type of ideas?
Everything from having hyperbaric chambers to the size of the gym to the type of equipment to what was important, what were the big rocks. And 48 ideas was overwhelming for one and unrealistic for another.
Yep.
So that the next week we went back, we got the group back together. We followed a really scientific process. We actually got 5 fantail lollies each, or not peanut slabs, but they got 5 fantail lollies, and that was their big rocks. And they had 48 ideas spread over the floor. And they got told, rightio, there are your 5 big rocks. Go and vote on which things are most important.
Yeah.
And they could put 1 on 5 things or 5 on 1 thing. There was no rules. And at the end of it, there was 14 ideas that clearly represented 85% of the votes.
Wow.
And so that's what we focused on. And to this day, we've represented 12 of those and achieved 12 of those things now. One of them has been written off. That was an incline running ramp, which was far too bespoke, too large. It wasn't going to be used enough by enough people.
Yeah.
And the other one was a hyperbaric chamber, which is still something we'd love to do in the future, but didn't sort of fit the mold initially. And I can talk about that further, but it didn't really fit the mold of being a really cool portable solution we could take off-site to service people as well if you wanted to. At that time, it's since changed.
Yeah.
The second thing that happened just pre-COVID is we reached out to 35 major international sporting organisations who, over the time of me travelling around the world and forming connections, was the door was open to talk with them. It was the likes of the New York Yankees, Giants, Knicks, Chicago Bulls, Padres, San Diego Padres, Paris Saint-Germain, Man United, the UFC, West Coast Eagles, and a whole bunch. And in the course of 10 days, 31 of the 35 responses came back, got all 35 in the end, but all of them contributing to a big melting pot of ideas. So it was a facility matrix that showed types of rooms, size of rooms, type of equipment, numbers of equipment, asked questions around food and beverage, questions around accommodation, how you want to live, what was important. And we profiled all those things. And in that exercise, we weren't going to be the New York Giants facility. Beautiful facility. It caters for 90 athletes who all play the same sport, all male, 150 kilos, exercise for 2 or 3 seconds at a time. So some of the things that were important to them in terms of how they set up their gym weren't important to us.
Yep.
We're dealing with a Wellington Phoenix player who might be 60 to 75 kilos, male and female, exercising for 90 minutes at a time. Again, catering for both male and female, but also we're catering for other sports as well. So we had to be a little bit different in that regard. But that exercise was unique. It validated our thinking, and it ensured that we were actually moving into a world-class environment.
Beautiful. Hearing all these clubs, and I'm sure there's a lot of rivalry between those clubs, because obviously it's commercialized too. They all kind of have their performance, goals that they want to achieve. How did you get the buy-in from these clubs? Because I would have expected that you kind of reach out to them, which I think is a very community-focused way, like a community in the sense that worldwide exercise and sports clubs should actually collaborate on achieving a greater good, which is probably safer, more effective, and higher success rates, so to speak. But I'm really surprised that you heard actually back from all of them. Like, was
Yeah.
there a secret source that you used, or was it really kind of, is there a way
relationships?
Okay, so that's been your background essentially.
Yep, just cool. getting to know people, staying in touch. It's not like your LinkedIn community where you sort of get a request and the next day you're asking for the world.
Yeah,
it was relationship focused. We weren't competing against them.
Right.
I think also it struck a chord with a lot of people wanting to share ideas.
Yeah.
And there's been several of those organisations come back since and go, great, where's your land? Can we come and have a look?
Beautiful.
And so it's sort of now become hopefully a blueprint in some ways. And we've really hung our hat on pushing the boat out, pushing the waka out and doing things a little bit differently. We've got several world firsts here, which we may touch on later.
Yeah.
Things that hadn't been done before.
Beautiful.
And so they were quite keen to see, A, did those things work?
Yeah.
B, we're also moving into a shared resource environment where we have got multiple sports, both genders, and the inclusion aspect was massive.
Yeah.
How do we make sure that's an environment where everyone feels comfortable to have their own spaces when they want, but also share spaces? And probably the accessibility aspect was something else that people were curious about. How do we deal with wheelchair athletes coming into the facility and making it feel like you don't turn left, you don't turn right, everyone can walk down the same path?
Yeah.
And that was something that I think really struck a chord with people.
For sure.
And it's just the openness. There's no hidden agenda, but equally there was a respect for their privacy. So anytime we talk about that information, we make it more of a clean skin or agnostic approach where you can look at it and go, that's interesting, without being able to trace anything directly back
to
any one club.
Yeah, beautiful.
And that's important.
Oh, for sure. Like I think it makes sense. Hey, like moving from a vision or sort of macro piece to a micro piece, like I know you guys had the Swedish national team here.
Yeah.
It's obviously the soccer club at the soccer the World Cup at the moment. How does it work? Like a team obviously lands here, and I know we got another sports team that's actually onboarding, I think, in an hour. But can you walk us through, like, if I had a sports team, or I'd be an observer, what happens actually? What happens on the ground, like from when they actually first land to when they leave?
Awesome. Okay, so it starts well before they land. Okay. So the key thing with the Swedes when they come here, we were stoked. We got the Swedes. We felt when they come out and did a pre-inspection of the venue, we just clicked. And we just knew they were good people, obviously got great athletes, a very strong team. They had a good sense of humour. They were professional in what they did. They outlined some of their expectations in advance. We never felt at any stage that it was being told what to do or demanded. It was always done in the right way, and they were really respectful and grateful. Mm-hmm. So I think that relationship started to evolve the moment they walked in the door for the pre-inspection.
How long before was that?
So the draw was made October, November last year, and by December we found out that the Swedish team were coming.
Right.
And so over the course of the next few months, we talked about everything from their connection and workflow, how they want to operate day to day. We talked about how we're going to save them time, i.e. they're not going off site for anything. They could walk from the field to the change room to the gyms. So just trying to work through their schedule to make sure it was a really efficient day, making the day shorter, allowing the athletes more time to relax and recover. And that was important. But also just working through the opportunities, I guess, to try and make it feel like they're home. And some of those things you would have seen in the village you're staying in. We changed the street signs to famous Swedish people over time. We talked about the branding and theming of their campaign. And when you walk into their change room, we went through an exercise with them to make every space about the athlete. So they had their own player profile picture, they had their name, those sort of things, I think, really signal to them that we're on the same waka. We want to make sure they were as successful as possible.
Yeah.
So when they arrived, and that was sort of in parts, so the management arrived and some players over the course of a couple of days, what was awesome for us to see is that the players that got here first were having a great amount of pride and joy showing the next athlete around. It's like, that's what you want. You want them to go in to feel like it's A, it's theirs to show around, and B, that they're proud to be here.
Yeah.
And so that was really rewarding. And then I guess we've got an amazing team of people here, from everything that happens in the accommodation with Belinda and her team, Tony with the operations side of things down there. Got a good understanding of how teams function.
Yeah.
And high-performing teams particularly, like any business, like the construction group that built this area here, they're a high-performing team. They're really good at what they do. And so being able to empathise with that team around what's important to them and ensuring their privacy is respected, and just giving them opportunities to do what they need to do.
Yeah.
And when they're in that gym, it's their place of work.
Yeah.
So that's why it's important. That's not a public area. behind us in the green room is, but that's not a public area because it's like going to your office and working at your keyboard. You don't expect someone over your shoulder, and that's their place of work. And that was cool. But probably refreshing, and for us, was when we talked to them about what they needed. One of the things they were really clear on is they wanted to work around with other professional athletes. So they didn't have any set booking times to come into the gym.
Wow.
We basically agreed on a flat fee daily. They could come in and use the recovery, use the gym, use the indoor. And what was cool about that is the clubs who were here at that time, so Wellington Lions, Wellington Pride, and the men's Phoenix team, they got to interact with the athletes. And it's very easy in a sporting environment when you're on the road to go stale because you're not getting those interactions. And those interactions were quite powerful. And in fact, the Wellington Lions, Duplessis Karefi, he actually farewelled them when they were in that green room saying, "We're on your waka." And that connection had been made and they started following the team. And I think as a whole, the tournament's been incredible, but having those little opportunities like that to connect with people, not just about what's on the grass, but off it was awesome.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah. Hey, from obviously my background is more health and wellness, and you know, I think it's fascinating to really learn much about like sort of the high end performance and sports, which obviously is your background. But I feel like over the last probably 10 years, I think there was a big shift when it comes to recovery. Yeah, kind of really understanding that you actually need downtimes. You kind of need to really use local, well, you know, like superior technologies to really boost performance, and you know, not just physically but also mentally. Like, what's your view on, you know, call it wellness, call it recovery? I think it all goes hand in hand. But where do you stand?
I think wellness is probably an illy defined term currently. It sort of it's got a lot of definitions. Yeah, I think recovery is a lot clearer. Recovery is still king, or recovery is queen, whichever way you want to see it. You recover better, more efficiently, more professionally. You train harder, train more effectively. So one of the first design considerations, in fact, in designing our recovery facility was actually getting rid of the 25-meter lap pool. So in the original plans, there was a 4-lane adjustable floor lap pool that was in the recovery facility, and it wasn't much more than that. So when I inherited those plans back in 2016, 17, it was sort of having those discussions with Mal and Kevin, the teams around, well, okay, this is cool, but what do we actually need day to day to make your athletes get ready for performance? Yeah. What also was evident is that we already have a new swimming pool, 50-meter lap pool being refurbished less than 10 minutes away in that direction. Awesome. Over our shoulder, we've got another one within 5-10 minutes. It's more recreational based with slides. So we didn't need to be the same. Yeah. And for that reason, we went out and tried to design the most bespoke recovery facility we could. So we looked at all options, cryotherapy being one. We've got 2 full immersion cryotherapy units. Beautiful. We've got a hot, cold plunge. They're built for 20 people at a time. They're massive. There's no waiting.
What's the temperature?
They can range from, the cold one sits between 4 and 12. At the moment, it's sitting at 12. Optimally, you get anything under 8, people start to get it. Not a lot of compliance. Yeah. So it usually sits around 12. The hot plunge is 38 to 40 degrees usually. Beautiful. All self-regulated, but massive. So we've got plunge pools there. We've also got individual plunge baths in the change rooms, but in the
when
recovery.
You say plunge, you mean like cold therapy, yeah? Like
hot and cold plunge therapy. Yeah, cool. Yeah. So whether contrast or plunge. Yeah. In that same area, we've got obviously the real heroes in that room, the gems. You've got the red light therapy. We've got 2 red light therapy booths, and next to that, we've got a Clearlight infrared sauna. And the infrared sauna, apart from having the timber with the hyperallergenic effects and the awesome Bluetooth speakers and changing the lights, it's a dry sauna, and I think it was definitely a new way of thinking for a lot of people who have gone for a traditional sauna in the past. Yeah, and I think the confidence I got through talking to you guys around the benefits of the dry sauna and the infrared quickly moved us in that direction. And I think it's 100% been the right choice. Great. And it's a real hero in that room, and the athletes love it. Yeah. And I think they love the fact they can go in and customize it a little bit by changing the lights or turning them off or plugging into the Bluetooth, which has been cool. Yeah. But again in that room, we've got a couple of other tools. We've got 2 hydrotherapy baths, one with a underwater treadmill, with a deep water running well. Wow. Both pools have paddle wheels in them as well, so endless running, endless swimming. And not about recovery, but something we're really proud of is above it, there's a 300-kilo accessibility hoist. And so that allows people to be dropped into any of their environments wearing a harness and a remote, and they can use the hydrotherapy baths, or they could use it for learning how to walk again in the dry space as well.
Amazing.
And that's pretty cool. Like we've already seen some really powerful uses of that. We had a guy 6'7", had a brain injury previously. He hadn't been vertical unassisted in 2 years. And when he got in the harness, he was able to be lowered into the water. And within seconds, he was vertical unassisted for the first time in 2 years. And that was the why. So when people say, well, why do you do it? Well, that's a pretty powerful story to be able to tell.
Oh, for sure. Like, I think, allowing someone to really go through that journey, like, I think
massive.
It gives you goosebumps, hey, because, never take it for granted. I love it. Like, I think you touched base on quite a few wellness or recovery tools, essentially. Is there anything that you're missing here? Like, I mean, obviously you've been the designer from start to finish, but, is there anything that you would do differently now after 6 years?
Maybe not differently in the hyperbaric sense, because I think we will still try and get to that point at some point in time.
I think it's a powerful technique. Hey?
It is. Yeah. I think that technology is definitely improving, becoming more accessible in the sense that it's more portable and costs are coming down as well.
Yeah.
But probably the thing we didn't speak about that plays a massive role was two things. One, there's an expression in New Zealand, how do you separate your mahi and your treats?
Can you explain that?
So the mahi is all the work and the treats are these things here, and having relaxation time and time with whānau, family. It's trying to create spaces where there's a different feeling.
Yeah.
And we've tried to do that inside the Performance Institute is about the mahi.
Yeah.
You walk outside, you go to the athlete lounge, which is like an airport lounge for athletes. They've got a games room, they've got sleeping pods, they've got one-on-one rooms for consultancies, they've got their own cafe, kitchen, dining area, lounge. And that's definitely a different look and feel.
Yeah.
Then you've got the new village, which is beautiful. And that's definitely a treat space as well. It's the ability to go over there and have a different color palette. It's got cork flooring. It's got 4 of them are altitude controlled. You've got recliners that can sit back and relax, and trying to have that space over there that does separate those things out. And there's little things that you're staying there at the moment you may have observed about the TVs in the main area aren't sitting in front of a bed. They're sitting to the side at a workstation with the recliners and trying to separate out, still doing some work, but when you go to bed, go to bed.
Yeah, great.
And sleep is still, out of all the things we talk about, you can have a bias to wanting to do cold plunge or cryo or a sauna or whatever you like. Whatever your number one preference is, if your second one or third one is not sleep, then you probably got it wrong.
100%.
The sleep aspect and making sure we've got really good beds. We got them tested, if you like, by one of the biggest, tallest athletes we could find hanging around, a guy called Dominic Bird. And he got asked to go down to test out 3 beds, and he picked the one that felt most comfortable, and the feedback's been great. It's little things like turning off the blue lights on the Wi-Fi access points. It's the cork flooring that's warm, it's natural, it's not a veneer, it's nice underfoot.
Yeah.
It's all those things that are going to prepare you for a better sleep. So yeah, sleep is still right up there.
100% agreed. And I think I've slept well tonight. So good on you guys. What's next for you guys? Obviously you're up and running now. I think there's a lot of international activity and a lot of international interest, from what you were saying. Like, what's next for you guys?
Yeah, well, the website I think goes live today. So, so we've had the accommodation one up for a while now, but we haven't really promoted or advertised it.
Yeah.
So that's exciting. We're getting lots of good inquiries even without that happening. But
who's your target customer?
So that's part of the process now, is getting out, and it's looking at realistically a lot of the targets with football and rugby profiles. They're also ones that often only have a one flight or a direct connection to New Zealand.
Yeah.
So we know that Japan 100% fits that bill. Strong rugby programs, strong football programs, great Kiwi connection. There's a cultural connection there as well.
Yeah.
The USA, they've recently won the rights for the men's and women's World Cups of rugby. They've got a very strong MLS program for football over there now, soccer. Southeast Asia through Singapore, a little bit the same, strong with their S League over there. And to a point, the Middle East. And that's probably a strange one for some, because often the European teams will go to the Middle East to do their pre-seasons, but where do the Middle East go? So in some cases, we've got a strong, again, rugby footprint, and maybe bringing some of the Middle East teams down here for a rugby experience.
Yeah.
But that is next. That's trying to make sure that this venue, whilst having our foundation membership group, we've got a regular touring team coming through.
Yeah.
and providing not just a sporting experience, but also a fully cultural experience and connection piece, where when you walk away, you understand what our paddle values are, and you connect with us on a different level like that. And then from a construction point of view, we've been building a plane and flying one for quite some time. It was nearly 12 months ago to the day that we actually got the keys for the first time. And it was only in June this year we officially opened, but we've been operating, if you like, since September last year, where we've sort of bled in and seen how things work, what breaks, where do we need another PowerPoint, all those little things that have been really helpful. This is coming into a bit of a landing now, a couple of small tidy ups to do. And then we are looking now at what's next, and what's next could be 2 new basketball courts / netball, potentially dance studios. We're really committed to looking at exploring the idea of a proper parasport venue. And then there's a couple of big, massive, audacious goals that Mel and Kev have got down the road as well about how can we redevelop existing spaces to be better equipped to handle the growth of Wellington and New Zealand, everything from residential, commercial, and sporting environments. So yeah, it's very much a blue sky and some really cool things to happen.
Yeah, great. I love because obviously your background also I think covers something on the kind of data analytics, sensory stuff. And, we talked about kind of the importance of data and the use, I think, of having really smart control system in the campus here. Like, are you guys planning on ramping that up as well?
Yeah, it's very much innovations in our name. And it was really important for us early doors to establish a strong technology partner. And just like anything, looking after one cat is hard. Looking after lots of cats is herding cats. So what we wanted to do was find a technology partner that could herd the cats for us, if you like, for lack of a better word. And we partnered with NTT. So NTT does a lot of the data analytics aggregation, sourcing of technology, bringing in partners like Dell and Cisco and Honeywell and Automation Associates, bringing in people that can plug in together to give you a really sort of seamless experience. And we're still in that journey, okay? So we're still working out how those different systems can align and be managed. And if you get that right and create that backbone of technologies, it then allows us to do some really cool, innovative stuff with data. But it's everything that they've done in the Tour de France, Major League Baseball, IndyCar 500 has been NTT as one of the cogs in that big wheel. So longer term, we've got a lot of hitting power here in terms of we've got over 200 screens on the walls. We've got, I think, 32 kilometres of LAN cable alone just in this building, let alone elsewhere.
That's wild numbers.
The fields are all got data trays around them. We've got cameras across all our fields. There's lots of opportunities to capture information. And then what happens next with that information is it's a bit of an unknown, because you've got the performance aspect, you've got the fan engagement aspect, you've got the sponsorship aspect for people that want to use that to engage with their fans. You've got the health and wellness side of that as well. So data is something that's a lot of people are keen to explore. I think a lot of debate currently is around who owns the data.
For sure.
Where realistically the athlete own their data, but how do you use it? So the discussion should be more around usage than ownership. And the usage has to be discussed at all those different levels. What does the athlete need? What does the sports science team need? What does the fan want to see? What does the commercial partner want to see? The broadcaster. And it's a hierarchy of information that's not always going to be the same. And some of them needs to be aligned to your name and other parts don't. It doesn't matter if that data is anonymous. It can be used by someone else for different reasons. So they're the sort of things we're exploring right now in conjunction with the players, who they've got some really innovative ideas as well around how they are going to either enhance their performance or have longevity in their career. So there's some pretty cool things in the future. And hopefully we've got the backbone now to do that.
Amazing. Yeah, awesome. Hey, before we wrap up, we've got a bit of a private question for you. Over the last, I think we've been speaking for, I don't know, 2.5 years at least. I think it was obviously during COVID, and I know you guys face delays too. I think the supply chain was difficult for us all globally, but we've had always early morning calls, late night calls, because the time zone was so challenging. But when you've been going nonstop, I think for 6 years, how do you manage it? Like, because it's full on, and I can see you operating here literally from early mornings to late evenings. How do you manage?
Definitely could do it better. A bit like a plumber in a leaky tap sometimes. I need to take more time out myself, but probably the crux of it, I probably had two junctions in my life where I've identified that I couldn't just keep doing what I was doing. So the first one was around 2008. I was sitting across 8 different national programs, and the communication lines were just really taxing. The work on the grass, working with athletes, was really enjoyable. Hadn't lost a passion for that. That was easy. Not easy, but fun. But then all the reporting and the administration, reporting to eight or so different administrations was pretty challenging. So at that point in time, I actually packed up with my wife now, Tony, and we went down to Christchurch, and we had just arrived in time for the earthquakes. So we were down in Sumner, and that was awesome. I met some really awesome people, and we moved back to Wellington only because that a lot of our family and friends weren't down in Christchurch. They were back here. What we moved to Christchurch for was really affected strongly by the earthquakes. When we moved back here to Wellington, that sort of completed that cycle, but it was the right thing to do to create that distance between all those groups I was working with and then to aligning more with New Zealand rugby. And that next 9 years, through to a couple of years ago now, that created the next junction, because I was fully immersed in the Black Ferns, doing a lot of work with them, as well as trying to juggle this and spinning those a number of plates and herding those cats, as we talked about. It become too much. Like I remember being on a tour just before moving away from the Black Ferns, where I was up till 2:00 in the morning working with Black Ferns, and I was up at 6:00 in the morning trying to catch up on what had happened back in New Zealand. And luckily, I had an awesome guy who I was working alongside at that point, Craig Twentyman, come into the Black Ferns, that I was like, 100%, this is the right guy going forward to take on this program. Gave me the sort of confidence of like, I can move away from this and be 100% happy. But B, more so than that, I realised that being on the road, I still can't get a New Zealand passport for the simple reason I've been out of the country too many days a year, every 5 years to qualify. And I was like, shit, if that's what's happening, it means I've got a 6-year-old and a 9-year-old who aren't seeing dad, and I want to be able to see their kids' sport. I'd missed too many of their birthdays. So at all those levels, the confidence in seeing where that program was going, being away from the whānau, knowing that this massive animal here, I couldn't look back on it when it opened and thought, I've missed that. I haven't seen that bit of detail or haven't looked after that supplier. And as with you guys, everything that we do, we have to form a meaningful relationship with the supplier, because that to them is the biggest thing. And for us, we might have 50 of those things, but we have to make sure that that is solid with that single person and with you guys. And a guy called Nick Gill, who's the All Black strength and conditioning coach, we're catching up one day, and I know he's talked about it a lot with me, but it sort of fell into place, and it was all about just do less things better. Just don't try and do more things to a point where you know that it's okay, because even though they're done well, you're not going to be happy with that, and you're going to burn yourself out if you keep trying to do it. So it was really at that point making that call. Let's just do less things better. Let's just focus on this. So it was difficult because that World Cup got pushed out by 12 months, and it was always going to be an awesome finale where the World Cup finished. I'll be able to move into this role here and happy days. With COVID, that timeline got pushed out by 12 months, and it was no longer going to be sustainable. So now I'm getting more than 4 hours sleep a night and spending more time with the family, and that's awesome. So next step is me using some of these facilities better. So that was been the two big crossroads. And again, it was 100% the right thing to do when we reflect on our paddle values again.
What are the paddle values?
So the paddle values is part of our connection piece here at the campus. And the kaumātua and our cultural lead in that space, Luke Crawford, he's both an Ihaia friend of ours and just a really solid man. He come in here several times during the construction phase, and he talked about moving into that big green room there and said, look, bro, this is our waka shed. And it was always like, yep, awesome. We want to be on that waka. We want the right people on the right seats and paddling in the right direction. So we slowly fleshed out with local iwi and Luke and our founding partners here and members around how we want to be seen by others. So the 3 paddle values we talk about is our growth, and the growth is represented by multiple korus. And so there's not just one koru or fern on that paddle. There is multiple points of growth. You don't get to find or what you just do on the field. It's what you do with other parts of your life, with your family, with your friends. So there's multiple points of growth. The second pedal is about our connection. And that's our connection to the environment, how we got here. That's to our family and our friends. And it was that pedal with the triangles that you see in the top of that pedal is the light triangles and the dark triangles. And the light triangles is everything you see on social media. It's always roses. Mm. The dark triangles are when you're struggling and you need support. And we need to acknowledge those and say they exist. But there are still more light times than dark times. So those two paddles sit on the outside, and they're both at rest. The paddles face upwards. And that's our balance. That's our balance in our lives of what support us. Then the middle paddle is our mangapati. And our mangapati is our hammerhead shark. And our hammerhead shark is not the prettiest fish in the ocean, but they're tenacious, they're persistent, and they just get stuff done. They always go forward. So I often talk about Malcolm and Kevin. They're our mangapatis. During COVID, it was once described as being a 100-meter sprint because Mal moves at pace, but it ended up being a 400-meter hurdles. Right? There was all these challenges all the way along the way, but the mangapati spirit just kept on going, kept going forward, found a way around the hurdles, and they're our paddle values. And so a lot of what's happened in the last 20 years being on the road and those and talking with athletes, they've found their way now into those paddle values. So today, actually, we're about to head out into the big waka shed. And this rope here is going to be presented to one of our teams, the Wellington Lions, and our paddle values are represented on these. We effectively talk to them today about the paddle values, and then they're going to walk over to one of the po, and they'll hang or tie up their toda onto the po, and that'll mean that they're signifying that they're part of the campus and they're attached. So their waka is tied up. Beautiful. And then we did this for the Swedish team, and it was hugely powerful to the point that their toda now has appeared in their change room when they've been 4 games. And when they leave us, we've given them their rope to tie up at their next port. But often teams will leave it here, and when they come back, they'll get their rope and they'll attach themselves again to the po. So it's pretty special.
So powerful. Awesome. Hey, I think we're out of time, but I did want to thank you for making time, for letting me stay here, letting me train here, letting me sleep here for the dinner last night. And obviously, far and most importantly, to really trusting us with the choice of infrared sauna, choice of red light therapy, and we're stoked, we're proud. I get goosebumps when I hear that vision and the spirituality you bring in there. And yeah, massive thank you and kudos for what you guys have achieved here. Oh, look, to that, we're just really fortunate. We've got a really collaborative bunch of partners. And for yourselves, one of the things that we ended up going with Clearlight was that we wanted to ensure that you stayed on the journey. And you being here now is indicative of that, and spending time with the staff and people down here talking about how we get the best out of the products. And that was super important to us. So, mate, thank you. Awesome. Thanks, Jamie. Yeah.